In section 5, we're going to talk about some advanced features of Vue.js. Although in most cases, the basic Vue functionalities will suffice, learning how to use those advanced features can help increase your productivity dramatically. I'm going to introduce you 6 features. The first one is form input bindings. Well, in fact, we have seen this in vModel. The second is custom directive. The third one is computed property. Then we're going to talk about watcher, filter, and how Vue can detect array changes. First, let's talk about form input bindings. I created a new project called Vue Advanced for section 5 and section 6. So right now I'm under 01 vModel and form.html. I'm going to use this example to demo form input bindings using v-model directive. As you know, in Vue.js, you can use the v-model directive to create bidirectional or two-way data bindings on form input. For example, input, text area, and select. Vue automatically picks the correct way to update the element based on the input type. Now, although this looks a little bit magic, but it's very simple to implement. First, let's take a look at the data in this Vue instance. So if I scroll down, and here is my Vue instance. Inside data object, there are 5 properties: uname, gender, hobby, occupation, and description. Now, as you can see, when I launch this project in browser, we already have all those values populated in this form. So here is age porter and male 2 and 3, and this is the first selection. If you look at here, this is the first selection in this drop-down selection, and I'm a wizard is the description. So how did we do this? In other words, how does Vue match uname to the first input, gender to the second input, and automatically give us a form with some predefined values? So let me scroll up. Well, as you can see, it's kind of tedious to scroll up and down because HTML is above. We always have to scroll down all the way to the script side. So in VS Code, we can split our screen. So if you click here, now we have 2 views of the same file. Now I'm going to drag it and put it in here. Okay. I want to make sure the top view only shows HTML and make sure the bottom view in the same file, but I'm going to scroll down to script. All right, let's look at them one by one. This is the first input. We're using vModel equal to uname. Make sure this uname is the same as the uname you define in this data object. Then this establishes a two-way or bidirectional data binding. So if I change something here, that will affect the data in script. And if I change the value in script, Vue will automatically update what shows up on the screen. Next is video button. And here is how we bind video button to this gender here. As you can see, there are 2 vModel equal to gender, but the 2 inputs have different values. And this is very important. Initially, gender is equal to 1. Then when I launch it in browser, the first input will be selected, that is male. So if I change this to 2, save, and I refresh, guess what? It has F. Let me change it back. Next is hobbies. Now this is a little bit tricky because there are 3 hobbies, 1, 2, and 3. So that means we're going to have 3 v-model equal to hobby. Now make sure that this name is the same. And apparently hobby here is an array. Right now it's 2 and 3. Okay, 2 and 3. So value 1, value 2, value 3 is basketball, football, and JavaScript. Well, it looks like Harry Potter loves JavaScript, like you do. Well, the next one is select. Now we only need to have 1 vModel equal to occupation. Now this one is the same as here. There is a two-way data binding. And it is 1 here because we only need you to pick 1 profession. For example, here, if I change it to data scientist, then this occupation will become 2 automatically. The next one is text area, vModel equal to description. And this is very similar to input text, the first one. Besides a very useful v-model directive feature, Vue also provides us a lot of modifiers that we can use with input boxes. So let me show you 3 of them: .number, .trim, and .lazy. So let's go over them one by one. I'm going to VS Code. Right now I'm in 02 form field modifiers.html. In this case, there are 3 input boxes. They're all of type text. And I use vModel to bind this input box to age. I define here. And there's info and message. Also, I have a message mustache notation here. And there is a button. So if the button gets clicked, handle function will be called. Basically, we're just printing 2 messages to the console. This.age plus 13. Now 13 here is integer, right? And this.info.length. We're trying to figure out how many characters are there in the second input box. All right. Now I'm not using any modifiers. If I type 23 and if I click, so what happened? What happened here is 23 will be bind back to age. So age is 23. And then 23 plus 13, which is supposed to be 36, right? If I click, now of course, the next one will be 0 because nothing here, right? So if I click, what I get is 2313. Why is the case? Because no matter how hard you try, what you get from input box is always of type string. If you really want to treat it as integer, here, before we add it to 13, we have to parse it to integer. Otherwise, this is a string plus a number. So this is no longer plus, but string concatenation. So 13 will be converted to string, and string 23, or string 23, and string 13. So it would be tedious if you use native JS code to do parse int. Remember, there's a method in window, parse int. So, but Vue provides a shorthand. What we can do is, after v-model, we can use dot number. Then this age will be converted to number automatically. So let me refresh. And this time, if I type 23 and press click, here we got 36. Okay, because the age is no longer a string, but becomes a integer. That's the first one. The second one is called dot trim. So for example, in here, if I refresh, if I type space, 4 spaces, and then ABC. Also, I'm going to type space. So 4 spaces in front and 3 spaces after. So 4 plus 3 plus 3, that is 10. There are 10 characters. So the second console log will print the length of info, which is 10. So if I click, I got 10 here. But sometimes we really want this ABC. We do not want the leading and also the trailing spaces. And there is a very good feature in Vue is if we add dot trim. So if we want white space from user input to be trimmed automatically, we can use this trim modifier to the v-model managed inputs. So in this case, if let me copy this. So 4 spaces and then 3 spaces, copy, and then I refresh. This time I'm going to copy it. We're going to 4 spaces here and 3 spaces here. If I click, we have 3. And as you can see that we saved the trimmed version in info. When Vue updates the view, we got ABC, not space, ABC, space. It's a very good feature. Now the third modifier we're going to tell you is dot lazy. What do I mean by dot lazy? Why become lazy, right? Let's look at the third input. In the third input, we bind this MSG to this MSG here, right? So if I type, for example, hello, now this MSG gets updated immediately, right? So for example, every time I type something, for example, I type P-O-T-T-E-R, hello Porter. So every time I input something, as you know that in JavaScript, every time we input something in the input box, an input event occurs. So by default, vModel here synchronizes the input with the data after each input event. So for example, input event, right? Now, can we do this? Is that, hey, can you wait until I finish up typing in this input box? Now when I press enter, or when I move my cursor here and press click, lose focus, then you can update. Okay, be lazy. Don't be so active. We can do that by adding a dot lazy modifier after v-model. We can do this, dot lazy. Now by adding this, we're changing the default behavior of v-model because by default, v-model synchronize everything after each input event. Now, by adding this lazy modifier, we change it to you update after change event. So what is change event? Let me show you. If I refresh, this is the third input. I'm going to type Harry Potter. Input event, input event, input, input, input. All of those are input events. But since I have .lazy, vModel will temporarily ignore all those input events. Then what is a change event? If I press enter, or I let this lose focus, for example, I press enter, then vModel will start synchronizing. So if this is what you want, you can use v-model.lazy to put this in an input box.